Hello, ladies and gentlemen. It is once again that time of the week. Oh, what time of the week is that? Well, it is that time of the week where we dig underneath all of the bourgeoisie propaganda, where we dig our heels in deep, pick up our shovel, and try to uncover what is actually going on in this here world of ours. It is the weekly show where we call out the establishment on its BS. It is the Hoodrat Strategist radio program, only on 89.1 WIDR Kalamazoo. So, this has been a heck of a week. Oh man. So, just kind of preview some of the stories we're going to be talking about today. Oh man, the tax plan. The tax scam, really I should say, it's like a rotten onion. You keep peeling back more and more layers, and there's just worse and worse rotting onion underneath. It's like, how horrible is the tax scam plan? Oh, let me count the ways. Oh, and we will be counting through those ways quite shortly. Also going to talk about, oh my goodness. So, the Muslim ban is, well, I would say it's in the news, but it's really not as much in the news as it should be. I get, everybody's following mean tweets and the whole kind of Russian red herring. Red herring. Anyway, so the Supreme Court, 7-2 vote, temporary stay on the Muslim ban. There is a tiny itsy-bitsy silver lining to it, as we'll talk about later. There's still some room for us as a people to fight against this in the courtroom. And again, this is just a temporary stay. This is not the Supreme Court actually deciding one way or another whether the Muslim ban is actually constitutional. They basically decide whether or not to make it temporarily possible, which, oh boy, I don't know, 7-2. That doesn't bode very well for me, but we'll see. God, everything's going to heck in a handbasket. Anyway, also, we will be talking a little bit about Honduras. And there's some stuff going on down there that most of y'all probably don't know about, but it's very instructive. How to deal with a rigged election, and frankly, I think we could learn a thing or two from Honduras. Also, going to be talking a bit about Libya, and an interview with a friend of ours later on the show talking about. There was a meeting with Keith Ellison, deputy chair of the DNC, over the weekend with him and some progressives from across the state, including myself. Going to talk to somebody else who was at that meeting who has some stuff to talk about regarding the Michigan Democratic Party and some shenanigans that they're up to. So we will be right back with all of those topics and more, but I have to go let my co-host in, so I will be right back.
So, look through the blind, it's not a game no more. Since we're playing as we drive so far, you are my silver star. Baby, I'm falling. Baby, I'm falling in love. Baby, I'm falling. Baby, I'm falling in love. And if I'm falling, not gonna end up too far. And if I'm
ladies and gentlemen, we are back. It's Hoodrat Strategist radio program, only on 89.1 WIDR. Lawrence is in the studio with me today. Help drop all those saturation truth bombs, as it were. So we're gonna dig into this horrible, atrocious pile of dog doo-doo tax plan. But I believe you said so. You wanted to touch briefly on what's going on with the Mueller investigation.
I mean, there's we're gonna get into some really sad stuff, but there is some good news. Manafort flipped on Trump. Is flipping on Trump. Mueller is looking into Trump's tax, into his money, and basically and for those who have been following the story, not just the propaganda, this part does have a lot of substance to it, where Trump was laundering a lot of his money and where he was getting a lot of his money. Yep. It was from Russian banks and Russian oligarchs.
Now, what I've said from the beginning, follow the money. They haven't done that yet. But
when you follow the money, you realize that Trump owes a lot of Russian banks and a lot of Russian oligarchs around $300 million. So, I mean, and a lot of that. Now, if you're talking about, it affected votes and things like that, then that's a whole separate issue.
Well, I mean, that's what all the memes were for.
Yeah. If you wanted to, and this is the thing that upsets me about the Democratic Party. If you wanted to impeach Trump over, the emolument clause or obstruction of justice, he's admitted obstruction of justice in the public sphere. Over Twitter and in TV interviews. I fired the head of the FBI because he was investigating me. That is by definition obstruction of justice. You can impeach him for that. And I'm like, if we really wanted to impeach our president, we could. The thing is, they weren't going to impeach him until the tax plan got through. Until the people who got him in, the people who financed him, they pay. And that's what this tax plan was all about.
It really was, yeah.
Oh, man. Let's... Oh, God. Yeah, we need to talk about that disaster. Oh, God.
I think I'm going to sandwich it in with a little bit of good news at the end. But, yeah, let's... Man, so it's... This tax plan it's like a kaleidoscope of the 1%'s wish list, so we've got and this is hitting a tax plan, by the way, and this is just like off the top of my dome. We've got Arctic drilling in the the Alaskan preserves land up there. Yeah. We've got a definition of life at conception in that tax plan. We've got
the defunding of Obamacare.
The defunding of Obamacare. For all of the students listening, and there's a lot of students listening, I'm sure, if you're a grad student in a PhD or master's program, you could be in a heck of a lot of trouble, especially if you aren't rich. And I'm guessing most of you aren't, because now your tuition waivers and your stipends are going to be taxed.
If you care about pro-life, if you are a pro-life person, a pro-life Republican, and you think people should adopt children instead of having abortions, okay? God bless you. You will be taxed. That tax benefit that you would normally get for adopting children, they're taking that away.
Also, when we're just real briefly back to the topic of education, are you a teacher that wants to, or has to buy school supplies, maybe because, the tax base where you live is so anemic that you have to, go buy pencils and books and stuff for your students? Well, that's not going to be a tax write-off anymore, but hey, you know how you can get a tax break? Send your kids to private school.
Wait. We could go on, but this is the one thing that makes me laugh about this tax break. There's nothing in this bill that actually benefits lower middle class. Over 10 years, over the next 10 years, anybody who makes around $85,000 a year will have their taxes increase exponentially. $85,000 a year. $85K. Let me please remind you that the median income in America is $30,000.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So, yeah, this tax plan is gonna help out the middle class. Yeah, it's gonna help out the middle class, like how this is 1928. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like
Really.
this is 1928. During the roaring 20s. And then 1929 is gonna come around.
Yeah. Well, there's a meme going around. It's like some conservative group. It's like we got the legislator, we got the White House, we got the states. This hasn't happened since 1928. And then like comment below is like, do they know what happened in 1929? It's like,
Oh man, Also in this bill, they further deregulated Dodd-Frank, which was already toothless to begin with in this tax bill. So the the gambling that the banks can do with your money, not their money, but with your money, derivatives money, they are allowed to do again. So you remember how we went through that crash during the Bush years? They're setting it up so we can do it again. And that's a majority that's overwhelmingly on the Republicans. That's overwhelmingly on the Republicans' side of fault. That's also on the Democrats' side of fault. Because when we had a chance to actually bring back Glass-Steagall, we had a chance to actually regulate, and we had a chance to actually put in the proper regulations so that we wouldn't be put in this mess. We did a half measure, and that half measure has been easily destroyed.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It just hurts my soul.
Let me expand a little on because one of the aspects of this that really goads me is you read big picture, this tax plan is unprecedented in such a way where it at least with the Bush tax cuts, they gave the poor and middle class something. They threw some bones,
Oh no.
Obviously,
They gave the poor middle class easier access to pharmaceutical drugs, which is now one of the main reasons why we have opiate crisis.
Mm-hmm.
That's really all that tax cut did. It did not help the middle class, and for Democrats now to actually have a positive view of George Bush, which I've seen recently in polling.
Oh my God!
That
there's a war criminal.
Oh my God! I'm like he has overwhelming. He has, I think, a somewhat 40-something% approval with Democrats, and I'm like, what?
So I guess
why?
That's the new. You can either be you can be dumb, inept, and a war criminal, or you can be the polite and slick war criminal. But if you're gonna be dumb and rude like our current president, that just can't fly.
Oh, man.
Bring the Bushes back.
No, oh God, no. God, Jesus, no. But here's the thing about this tax plan. I know we getting off subject, but for Republicans, my Trump voting people, men, women, children. You remember how he said that he was going to fight for you? Remember how he said he was going to drain the swamp? Remember all that? He lied to you. Him and the rest of the Republican Party, they lied to you. I can't really say much because the Democratic Party is still screwing over its own base. We will get to that later today, hopefully.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
But these people have proven that they do not care about the American people. They trick you so that they can fill the pockets of their donors. When you look at this tax plan, they want to get rid of they are planning on getting rid of the estate tax. Yeah. The estate tax in this tax plan. Ask yourself this one question. Do you have an estate? Do you have $20 million that you can leave to your children? No, then that tax does not affect you. It affects Trump though. It affects everyone that's it affects Dianne Feinstein. It affects the Republican Party.
But if the rich make more money, Lawrence, then they'll just create more jobs. Which, and two things to go off that real quick. So there's actually an interview Wall Street Journal conducted where there was these, basically it was this conference of hedge fund managers, and they were like, oh no, that's going to go back into stock. Like they pretty much admitted that outright. It
will go to the stock, it will go to the shareholders, and it will go to the CEO of the company. That's where that money's going to. It's not going to research and development. It's not going to expand the business. No, it's going into the pockets of those who own the company. The workers do not share in that money. The temps that they hire do not share in that money. Who benefits from that that money that they're getting from this tax ban? The 1% and the 0.5 of the 1%.
Yeah, I mean, ask yourself this: like, where's all this innovation that we were promised? Yeah, the only thing that America is really innovative about now is the rate at which we can accelerate income inequality. And Democrats, they haven't been much better either. I would recommend people read Thomas Frank's I'm having a brain fart.
Listen Liberal?
Listen Liberal, yeah.
Yeah.
And it talks, something I noticed that's very interesting about how the Republicans attacked education, particularly like university education, was Democrats have had, especially since the 80s with the Democratic Leadership Council, they've focused on kind of this professionalist meritocratic conservatism, where as long as everybody has a chance at education, they can accelerate themselves to the professional class, and that's going to drive innovation. Now, unfortunately, as we found out, just because a few people from the bottom can go to Harvard, like, presidents like, Barack Obama, and also like Bill Clinton, who went to an Ivy League school but started very meagerly, that doesn't mean that that's like going to automatically solve income inequality. I mean, like we're seeing in the fallout right now of this culture where it says, as long as you get a degree, as long as you get enough training, you can get a job. Well, there's not enough jobs out there, period. And what's interesting to me is, as the Democrats facilitated this culture of professionalism that kind of, they converge themselves on the big metropolitan areas, the big cities. It became this thing where the working class, which went increasingly Republican, saw those meritocratic professionals as the enemy. Even like the people who would rose up from their economic echelon to the places like Harvard, Yale, or like creating a tech startup. Those people were the enemy. So in a broad sense, like, that part of it is carrying out the culture war that a lot of those Trump people voted for. But good God, it's the conservatives have attacked the education system before. They have I would suggest Dark Money talks about this a lot, where the university system was infiltrated with a lot of hard right, like libertarians and such. But I've never seen them literally just try to chop off access to education at the legs like this.
I mean, it's not just education. I mean, like, if you this is the one thing that they were going to get through. Push come to shove. If they couldn't destroy Obamacare right off, they were going to do it in this tax plan. If they could not take away access to women's rights, they would do it some way in this tax plan. This was the one thing that their donors said not just Republicans, but also Democratic donors said, if they don't get their stuff together, if they don't pass this or they don't get it right, then they're done. There's multiple interviews of the Koch brothers or Paul Ryan or others saying that their funding will be cut if they did not pass this tax bill. Now, credit to the Democrats on this. Not one Democrat voted in favor of this tax plan. I'm saying thank God.
We're on the fence.
I say thank God because Jesus Christ, like you know something is bad. There's a couple signs that my mom and dad told me. You know something's bad when you have to do it in the dark. You know that you don't want anyone else to see it, and you don't answer questions about it. Like there was a Republican representative that was being interviewed, I think on MSNBC. I posted it, and the interviewer has a corporatist bias in the way that they're speaking. They have a right-wing way of framing the questions. The Republican representative still didn't answer the question about what taxes or loopholes that were being taken out that was going to help the middle class. His whole point was, that's the whole point of this bill was to give money to our representatives. We don't want to give money to our donors. We don't want them to pay more. Our whole bill and our whole reasoning for do this is to cut the is to redistribute wealth from the people of this country to the people who pay my bills in this country.
Wait, the Republican guy said this?
I'm gonna send it to you so you can play it on the show. I am not joking.
They're just coming right out and saying it now. I guess
he came out. He didn't say it in. I'm paraphrasing, but he didn't just come right out and say it.
Okay,
but yeah. I am paraphrasing.
I wouldn't be surprised at this point, man.
No, but I mean, there was a Democratic donor who said if the Democrats use the term billionaire or millionaire, that he's done.
Oh yeah. Yeah, we talked about that on the show a couple weeks ago.
Oh my God. Yeah. God. But yeah, see, here's the thing. In my opinion, I don't think Trump's going to make it to his whole 4 years. In my opinion, I think Trump's going to be done probably in the next year and a half. I give it to in late 2017, early 2018, Trump's going to be gone.
Yeah.
But this is the one thing that he will sign before he leaves, before they say he has dementia or Alzheimer's, before when Roger Stone said that garbage, and people started to believe him. Yeah, but that's
gonna be his legacy. And,
this is gonna be a part of his legacy. Oh, how did I help out? How did I help the country? I helped the country to go into its second Great Depression.
Yeah,
and how did we get out the first Great Depression? We had to go to war to get out the first Great Depression.
Well,
yeah.
I would say the New Deal did help a lot.
The New Deal, no, and the New Deal, the New Deal that one candidate, one person, actually has been pushing for, in not so many words, a New Deal. Yet the mainstream media likes to pretend that this person doesn't exist, or they try to smear him as much as possible.
Well, my thing with that is like we're not going to be seeing the effect of this horrible tax plan right away. It's not gonna you're not going to really see it for another 5, 6, 7 years.
It is a slow moving. It is a slow moving avalanche. Like change happens. Like and I've said this before. Change happens a little bit at a time, and then all at once.
Yeah.
And when people realize within the next 2-3 years, hey, I'm not getting as much money back from my taxes. Hey, why am I paying so much in taxes? Why did my taxes go up 200%?
Oh yeah, and this bill, it's really nothing less than tax warfare or class warfare. I mean, and when we talk about the New Deal, what was interesting about then versus now is you know, when the New Deal happened, that was FDR. It wasn't because he was like, oh, this is from the bottom of my heart. It's because he was getting intense pressure from social movements, from the socialists, the communists, from like progressive Democrats. And it was so much pressure that he basically told the elites of his time, the oligarchs of his time, you know, if you don't buy into this, you know, and you know, this was like the late 1920s, so like the Russian Revolution was just like a decade and a half ago at this point. And he's like, if we don't do something, you know, what happened in Russia could happen here. And we're seeing like, you know, it's there's some historical symmetry here, and I'm looking at it and like I think the oligarchs of our time are either too ignorant or too arrogant to realize just how mad the underclass is.
Oh no, it's arrogance. It's arrogance. It's the belief that it's the old quote from Gangs of New York, where the rich would say, it doesn't matter how angry the poor will get, we'll pay half of the poor to defend us from the other half. Yeah. And in many ways, when you have mainstream media that doesn't dive deep into this, or they put a Republican and a Democrat on at the same time and they do not debunk the garbage that comes from both sides, they do not give context and actual truth, then yeah, you're going to have multiple instances of this happening. You're going to have we're going to have more of this happening in the next few years, and it's only going to get worse. It's not going to get better.
No, we're in for a bumpy ride, folks.
Oh man, brace.
And God, yeah. I gotta tell you, I'm terrified about, like, this is gonna sound weird, I'm terrified about Trump getting impeached, because as far as I know, there's nothing impeachable on Pence, and like
no, there's nothing. Here's the thing, there's nothing no, I take that back. There are very horrible things that Pence have advocated for and he has fought for, but if you impeach Pence, you're gonna have President Paul Ryan.
I know. It's
like there's no
pick your poison.
Right. Yeah. There's no good step. The thing is this, is that the next few years, because of this tax plan, because of the deregulation of the EPA, because of what Betsy DeVos is doing when it comes to education, it's gonna get bad. It's gonna get really bad. It's going to get worse. But there is a silver lining. There's a silver lining. In 2018 and 2020, we can have some people, some real progressives with real ideas that will actually help the American people.
Oh yeah, and
actually get into power and actually use their power for good. So and that's the silver lining.
There's a lot of good signs that people are ready for, not even just like something that is the opposite of Trumpism, but they are ready for like radically left candidates with radically left ideas. I was about to bring up another Democrat, DSA member, Democratic Socialists of America, won a seat in the city council of Knoxville. And not only that, but this is an Indian American woman too. And Knoxville is like, I mean, it's, you know, we're talking about Tennessee.
We're talking about Tennessee. We're talking about Knoxville, Tennessee. We're talking about good old boy territory. That's what we're talking about.
And yeah, so like, yeah, we have. I don't know if I'll go into the whole article, but it's a good sign. You're seeing this in other places too, where like, you know, Danica Rome winning over in Virginia. This is the time for unconventional candidates who have a populist platform, and I think we've got the tea leaves. If you read the tea leaves, like that, it's not only winnable, but those are the ones who do win. Are the people who are different than the norm, and who have a strong, progressive, democratic, socialist platform.
It's almost like if you actually stand behind the policies that you're fighting for, and those policies actually help the American people, that the people will be behind you.
Yeah.
Like, oh my God. It's so complicated.
All right, so I think we're about to take a break, but I wanted to get back to something you said about, the rich will pay half of the poor to fight the other half, and I kind of want to lead into the Honduras story from there.
Oh my God!
Talk a little bit about that. So this is the Hoodrat Strategist radio program, only on 89.1 WIDR Kalamazoo, your only source for political revolution. Keep your dial locked. We got lots more truth to drop coming your way.
Be apparent, but hunger is a rather prominent issue amongst the student body of Western. The Invisible Need Project is a multifaceted initiative that's aimed to help struggling students. Every 2 weeks, generous people donate their food to the pantry located in their Fawn Student Service buildings or other drop-off locations. All you need to do is grab a reusable bag and grab whatever food you need to help sustain yourself. If anyone's unsure when their next meal will be, or if you have a little extra food you'd be willing to donate, the food pantry is your place. If you're looking to help donate, become a volunteer, or just learn more, call 269-387-4742 or email dosa-inp@wmich.edu for details.
Are you trying to get your local Kalamazoo business name out to the WMU and Greater Kalamazoo communities? Why not do so while supporting Radio Evolution through underwriting and donations? For more information, please visit widrfm.org.
What?
I will have to cancel those plans, man.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we're talking a little bit about just a quick plug. We talking about the net neutrality stuff, which as of this time next week, it's the 14th that they're going to make the decision. And tomorrow, all over the country, there are people protesting at various Verizon stores, and that's because, Ajit Pai, who wants to kill net neutrality, he's the current FCC chair. He used to be a Verizon attorney, hence the Verizon thing. So there's going to be stuff going on in Kalamazoo all day. From noon to 3, there'll be folks over at the West Main location, and then there'll be folks at the Westnedge location, Verizon store, from 5 to 6:30 p.m. So,
I mean, for those who not understand how important this is, I mean, it's bad enough that 6 companies own everything that you see, hear on the radio, and newspapers, and on television. Net neutrality is basically saying that those companies can kill off their competition by slowing their internet to their websites, or slowing the frame rate and the speed, and basically the profit and business to companies that might be direct competitors. So Netflix is a direct competitor to Hulu. Well, Verizon and Comcast are associated with Hulu. So Netflix, Facebook, y'all have a problem. Y'all have a hey. How about you pay this toll?
Yeah,
and we'll speed up the access to your websites. Maybe now that's cool for international companies like Netflix and Facebook. That's fine. For independent media, Republicans and Democratic and progressive or alt-right, for media, Democracy Now!, Young Turks, even if you like Dave Shapiro, if you like Ben Shapiro, if you like Milo Yiannopoulos, you think that they're not going to slow down your internet as well?
Yeah, well, you already see this, like how they demonetize YouTube videos. It wasn't just people on the left. It was also right-wing commentators who were going after, like, basically establishment news stories critical of the establishment. And that really is the important thing. I think it's being left out. Now, there's a lot of people more casually just worried that their internet's going to turn into a cable package, and that's bad too. But
no, it's going to be worse.
Yeah, it's going to be way worse than that.
If you think your cable package is bad now, they're basically saying throw some D's on it.
Yeah. I'm going to talk about this more extensively at the rally tomorrow. This is actually going to be kind of like the focus of my speech. But think of just like, here's an example. Let's say the Young Turks, Democracy Now!, The Intercept, just any like independent media source you can think of. Say they write up a story or put out a story that's critical of Comcast or Time Warner or one of the other owners of these internet service providers.
Or CNN, MSNBC. Yeah. They own MSNBC, CNN.
So without net neutrality, they will fully be within their rights to say, we're going to slow your website down, or we're not going to let your website show up to our customers. And they won't need an explanation. They'll just be able to do it because they'll be like, we're a private corporation. We can make these decisions. So it's going in the way that mainstream media has to play ball in order to keep their funding. I can see them using this as leverage against independent media in order to basically keep a position on the internet.
This is not. If you thought that we have state-run media before, this is not just state-run media. They're literally we're gonna have the internet in China. That's basically what we're gonna have.
The only difference is like it'll be, instead of state-run media, it will be corporate state-run media.
Basically,
and that's basically what it's.
That's basically what it is. Now, all right, we'll talk more about that. Probably you'll talk more about it tomorrow. We'll talk more about it on another show. Yeah. But slavery. You thought slavery was over, huh? That we live in an age where we only need to worry about wage theft from corporations and legal robbery in the form of police officers robbing you with civil asset forfeiture. No, we have actual slavery. Mm-hmm. The selling of families.
Yeah,
in this country,
and
not in this country.
But in this country.
I mean, we have a form of slavery called the private prison industry, but in Honduras, they actually have actual.
No, that's you're mixing that up with Libya.
Oh,
and
Libya.
We were going to talk about that.
I'm sorry.
I guess we can bring it into both because both of their situations are. Kind of wrapped up because of our intervention. So, and here's the thing that we were going to bring up with Libya is that no one else is covering. CNN is shocked. Oh my goodness, there's slave markets in Libya. What is CNN not talking about? Why is in Libya in such a crisis? And actually, I will give the New York Times credit because they actually had an article. No, it was USA Today. I'm sorry. Yeah. They had an article that was like, this is basically the fault of Hillary Clinton when she was Secretary of State because she came in and we saw he died without doing any kind of follow up, and Libya completely destabilized. Now, not to say that Gaddafi was like this amazing guy. You know, he did his own atrocities. But anytime you go into a nation and say, we're going to take out the bad guys, like we've done in Iraq and Libya and Afghanistan, you don't understand, like, what's going to happen. The country will get destabilized, and it usually ends up being way worse than it was before.
I mean, we've seen this story before. We're gonna bring liberty and democracy to the Middle East so they can fight against Russia and their communism, and then we overthrow their democratically elected leaders because they're not friendly to our business, and then Al Qaeda's created. We kill Saddam Hussein because he's a dictator that doesn't want to play ball with us. Then ISIS is created. Mm-hmm. We're doing AFRICON right now, where we're destabilizing countries all over Africa. Most Americans do not even know why we have over 100 military bases in Africa, and then we wonder why things like Boko Haram is a thing, or why Libya now has slave markets where they're literally selling families, selling people. It's like, I'm not saying that Gaddafi was a good guy. He wasn't. He was doing atrocities. But let's not pretend that America's not doing deals with dictators all over the world right now, because we are. We deal with dictators if it's going to affect our military industrial complex, if it's going to profit our empire, if it's going to profit the corporations that control our government. And that's the God honest truth. So when I saw that story, it was heartbreaking. But what made me even more angry is that no one's going to talk about how America's involved and how our involvement caused this. Mm-hmm. That is journalistic malpractice, and that's exactly what it is.
Oh yeah. And I did want to pivot to focus a little bit on Honduras. And for those of you who don't know a little bit of background, the Honduran coup happened relatively recently. The military ousted Manuel Zelaya in 2009 with General Romeo Vasquez Velasquez, who went to the School of the Americas. Oh man. And if y'all don't know what the School of the Americas is, it's basically the training ground for all of like the military CIA interventions that we do in Latin America and all over the world. When we send people out to like overthrow sovereign governments and such. And as we've said before, our government, and particularly Hillary Clinton at the time, had a pretty big role in facilitating and supporting that coup. But let's fast forward a few years, and by the way, the resistance to this right-wing government has been going for quite some time. Famous Berta Cáceres, sorry. She was an indigenous Honduran activist. She won the Goldman Environmental Prize. She was assassinated quite recently, back in March. And actually, I bumped into her daughter at the DNC, who was basically talking about Hillary Clinton's role in this whole coup. But I want to fast forward to what's been going on in Honduras more recently. There was an election, and there was a basically leftist anti-corruption coalition that was led by Salvador Nasrallah. And initially, the results were showing that Nasrallah was going to take the lead. And then the Department of Elections in Honduras was quiet for a couple of days, and all of a sudden, Hernandez, the right-wing incumbent who descends from this military coup, was ahead. By Monday, it showed that Hernandez was ahead of Nasrallah by 42.98 to 41.39. And so how did the people respond in Honduras? Did they make a lot of angry memes and argue with centrists about what election rigging is? Well, the answer is no. They took to the streets in the thousands. Again, like, it's these people were taking to the streets to protest over election fraud. And one of the most interesting recent developments, we're talking about like pitting half of the poor against each other. This was in The Guardian, posted, what's the date on this? I believe it was yesterday, or no, it was Monday. It's the police are now refusing to obey the government because, they've had the police out there trying to quell these riots. And I'll just read directly from this. All national police, including elite U.S. trained units, so like the people who were either involved or descended from those involved in the original Honduran coup, said they were going to refuse to enforce a curfew ordered by the government after days of deadly violence triggered by allegations of election fraud. And a spokesman for him said, "We want peace and we will not follow government orders. We're tired of this," said the spokesman outside the National Police headquarters. And, in this week of horrible, craptastic news, this brings a little bit of, like, hope to my heart. Because not only just, like, the bravery of the Honduran people, and also seeing an example of when, Howard Zinn had that famous quote about, like, how we will only truly get, a revolutionary people's government when the guards take the side of the inmates. Metaphorically speaking. And this is what we're seeing here. And, also, like, shout out, there's going to be a lecture tonight about the Russian Revolution over at the Bernard Center. I believe that's room 204, 7 o'clock. And part of the history of, like, the success of the Russian Revolution was there came a point where the Tsar's army refused to take up arms against the protesters. So, I think, like, I'm glad the people of Honduras take their elections a lot more seriously than we do. And also just, like, this idea of, the police laying down arms and taking sides with the protesters. Now, I think there's inherent cultural problems that prevent something like that happening in the United States, and maybe we could talk about that a little bit, Lawrence.
I mean, yeah, the police actually, not cracking the heads of peaceful protesters, but being on the side of the peaceful protesters. I mean, that in America, that's a dream, because I don't think that's ever happened. I mean, not to my recollection. I am sad that things had to get violent. Why things have to be violent, so that for people to find justice. That's the thing it saddens me the most about this story. It also shows you that power does not concede anything without a fight. Mm-hmm. Now, I hope and I pray a lot that we don't have to have an actual fight in this country with weapons, with guns, with things like that, because we will lose. We will lose.
Well, from what I understand in Honduras, like, most of the actual protests were non-violent. It's just the police
until things got violent with the police using force. Yeah. And that's what will always happen. If you saw what happened in Baltimore, if you saw what happened in Ferguson, if you saw what happened in Chicago, as Martin Luther King once said, riots are the voices, or are the vessels of the voices of the unheard. Mm-hmm. And that's what that is. When you have these type of situations and the people are aware of what's going on, they're not going to stand for it. And when the powerful says, well, bow your head and fall in line, and the people says, no, we're not going to. We're going, this needs to change, or we're going to have some real problems. Now they are at the part where they got some real problems.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know? And that's the thing that is with not just this story, but also, you know, I'm bringing it back to also to America. We can't allow the stuff that's happening, like with the DCCC and how they're rigging the election today in the favor of the establishment. We need to have free and fair elections. When you have free and fair elections, you won't have these problems. But when people are so entitled to the trinkets and to the money that they had instead of the will of the people, even though their job is to, you know, have the will of the people, facilitate democracy and have the will of the people, then yeah, you're going to have these issues. I mean, I hope that things don't get worse in Honduras. I really hope things don't get worse in Honduras. But, and also talking about Libya, but America cannot keep getting involved in countries and then sit back and be like, we didn't do anything to facilitate, we didn't do anything about this. America was directly involved in not only just in Honduras and in Libya and the other atrocities as well. Mm-hmm. And we need to take responsibility for that.
Yeah, we need to, and you know, we've got to, you know, it's really going to fall on us too. Is, you know, people are hungry for information, you know, left, right, whatever, and they're particularly hungry for information about what is America's true history. What have we actually been up to? And you know, the last several decades, you know, especially after World War II, saw the confluence of the CIA economic interests and the strong arm of our military. I'd recommend everybody read, there's a book I'm just starting to get into right now. It's called The New Confessions of an Economic Hitman.
Oh, man.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Confessions of Economic Hitman. Like, oh my God, that book was so good.
Yeah. And I mean, it just lays it out like, you know, right there. I think a lot of people, you know, they have a hard time believing that our government gets up to what it gets up to. Perhaps because, you know, they don't want to think that we're living in some sort of, you know, evil empire or that, you know, we've actually colluded in horrible atrocities like this. But, you know, when you really start peeling back the layers, you know, it never starts like, oh, we're gonna like destabilize a country. No, it starts with, we have some economic interests there. We could strong arm them. Basically, we can wield debt as a weapon. And if anybody ain't playing ball, you know, that's when the military gets involved. That's when we have these interventions.
I mean, you don't even gotta go that far. I mean, look at the business dealings that we have now. Why are we okay with Saudi Arabia bombing Yemen, destroying lives in Yemen, killing women, men, children? Why are we okay with that country being one of our top allies when 17 of the 19 hijackers on 9/11 came from Saudi Arabia? It's because if Saudi, as Dr. Cornel West once said, man, if Saudi Arabia wasn't giving was giving us cabbages instead of oil, then we wouldn't be having this conversation. Like it wouldn't even be a question about where we stand. I mean, it's the same thing when you talked about the Muslim ban. You know what I'm saying? The whole Muslim ban in the countries that are not on that list, but the countries that are.
Oh yeah,
like, you know, I mean, we can talk about that. I do want to talk about one other thing before I have to dip out, because, you know, I always got to dip out at 6. You want to take one more break and then get back at it, or you want to?
Yeah, sure. Let's go ahead and do that real quick, and we'll wrap up our conversation, and then I'm going to have a guest on real quick. We're going to talk about our meeting with Keith Ellison, and Yeah, it is interesting out there. So, this has been, you're listening to the Hoodrat Strategist radio program only on 89.1 WIDR Kalamazoo, your only source for political revolution.
Enviromax 30-second spot. Our planet's ecosystem balances delicately between man, animals, and the forces of nature. That's why Fuji created Enviromax batteries. No cadmium, no mercury, no PVC. And packaged with 75% recycled materials. So choose maximum power with minimum impact when you're ready to turn over a new leaf.
Wider is proud to be supported by Pedal Bicycle. Pedal Bicycle has 2 locations on 611 West Michigan Ave and 185 Romans Road. More information can be found at pedalbicycle.com.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. We are back. This is the Hoodrat Strategist radio program.
Can we talk about one thing before we jump into this?
Yeah, sure.
Jimmy Kimmel. If y'all haven't seen Jimmy Kimmel's clap back at Roy Moore.
Oh, yeah.
If you need something to smile, if you need something to make you laugh, Jimmy Kimmel. Okay, so Roy Moore was having this. For those who don't know, Roy Moore is running. He's running for Senate. He's a child abuser. He's a child molester.
Hopefully, everybody's heard about that.
Yeah,
by now.
He's a child molester. He's a man that was hitting on 14, 15, and 16-year-old girls. He is banned from the mall in his town. He is banned from football games in his town because he was trying to hit on cheerleaders. And I am not joking. That was in his 30s. And he is not in his 30s anymore. And he still tries to do it. Like, oh God. Okay.
He's like every worst Alabama stereotype.
Oh, my God.
Together.
Yeah, he really is. Okay, so Jimmy Kimmel, late night talk show host. He was, Roy Moore was having he was having a speaking thing in a church. And, Jimmy Kimmel sent some people down there to troll him. He sent one of his own coworkers to troll him. And Roy Moore didn't appreciate it. So he went on Twitter and said, Jimmy Kimmel, if you want to insult our Christian values, then come down here and say it to our face. And Jimmy Kimmel basically said, sure, when you get some Christian values, I will be down there immediately.
Yeah, of
and
course.
he said, don't worry, we'll send you a front seat. Mm-hmm. And then Roy Moore said, that's good. We'll make sure you have a front seat in the pew. And he said, okay, I'll be down there. I'm just not bringing my daughters.
Yeah.
I was like, rib shot.
Yep.
Gut shot.
Oh,
The clapback. That was like,
That's some good stuff. You know?
Oh, man.
Sometimes, a lot of people will be like, oh, such and such late, like, who's totally wrecked Trump or like some Republican. But no, that's actually pretty good.
I was like, oh, man.
Yeah.
Okay. Here's the thing.
Are we talking about the Muslim ban or the?
We can talk about either one, man. We can talk about Muslim ban. We can talk about how the DNC is trying to rig the election. The DCCC. What just came out with the DCCC.
Oh, okay. Actually, expand on that because I'm not sure if I'm familiar with this most recent development.
Okay, basically, for those who not understand, the DCCC helps with organizing different aspects of the primary and the campaign, and basically they came out with a letter to different people who are planning on running. And the letter basically said, we need to have unity. Do not hurt. They were basically saying, do not do things that will damage our chances for the general election. And if you do not sign this petition, this agreement that the DCCC puts together, that you will not get access to the voter rolls. They will basically shut you out of access that you will need to run an actual campaign as a Democrat. They're literally saying in many there's different people who brought up this story. The Young Turks investigate, the TYT investigates what are people who broke this story. The Intercept also talked about it. The Guardian also talked about it. Mm-hmm. They're basically saying that if you do not unify behind the establishment and you do not do anything to harm the establishment, then we will try to help you in your campaign. And they're basically saying if you're not an establishment candidate, then the super PACs can attack you all day, all night, that the establishment have access to. Mm-hmm. You cannot do the same, or we will not help you. Yeah. Mm-hmm. We will cut you out of VAN, which is their voter access network.
Oh,
we'll cut you out of right. We'll cut you out of VAN. We'll cut you out of the fundraising that we will be doing, and you have to spend 75% of the money that you raise on TV ads. And not on, and not the way that you want to spend it. You have to spend it the way we tell you.
Oh boy, right.
That's what the DCCC is doing right now. Not back in 2016. That letter came out 2 days ago. So the DNC hasn't learned. They have not learned. They have not learned in any way, shape, or form that they're going to fight, that they're going to fight progressives. And the DCCC has a history of kicking out progressives, of shunning progressives, and they're basically still doing it.
Well, you know what? Yeah. I say DCCC, they can go find a short pier and take a long walk.
Take a long walk off a short pier.
Yeah. I will say this. This isn't a universal rule, but a lot of the Democrats who have been winning, the progressive ones, haven't really had much support from the Democratic Party. I know Danica had a little bit more. Like her team actually got a visit from like Tim Kaine and stuff.
The guy who won in Birmingham.
Oh yeah,
the guy who won in Birmingham. He was a Bernie-crat. Yep. He had no support from the Democratic Party.
No,
none. Yep. And he won. Mm-hmm.
So you want us to like spend money on television, to like old strategies that clearly are like outmoded with what we actually need. Where it's at, social media and knocking on doors, like TV ads. Most of the people that you need to get out there to vote, TV ads either are not going to sway them into voting, or they've usually already made up their mind. So, there you go. Yeah.
Like, dog, that's some of the buffoonery that the Democrats are doing. The other things that some of the buffoonery that Democrats are doing is that they're doing the negotiation for the budget right now, and the Republicans realize that they do need, in the House, they need Democrats to pass this bill. The only thing that the Democrats are asking for is the DREAM Act. Okay, here's the thing. This is a bad strategy if you ever look at negotiating. You don't ask for the minimum thing that you want when you're negotiating. You ask for 2 to 3 times more than what you want, and then you can negotiate. If I was the Democrats, I would say, if I was in power and I was a representative, I would be like, okay, you will not cut Social Security, Medicaid, Medicare. You will not cut Social Security, Medicaid, Medicare. We want not only the DREAM Act, and okay, you also want us to vote for this. All right, we will have. We're going to either legalize marijuana. We're going to do something like Medicare for all. We're gonna do something that the overwhelming majority of the country on both sides of the issue believe in. And those are things, that's where I would start negotiating at.
Yep.
That's how you're supposed to negotiate. That's not what they're doing right now. And that's upsetting. It's very upsetting. But there is hope, man. There's hope. There's the Justice Democrats, there's Democratic Socialists, there's Our Revolution, there's We Will Replace You. There are so many people who are actually willing to fight for our issues that will be running in 2018 into 2020, and I'm so excited. But I have to go.
All right, Lawrence. Well, thanks for joining us on the program. Good discussion. In just a couple minutes, we'll be joined by a awesome organizer, friend of mine.
I'm so mad.
Yeah,
you got a chance to meet Keith Ellison, man.
Man, I'll tell you.
Not only did you get a chance to meet Keith Ellison, you actually got a chance to discuss with him. Please tell me. Oh man, I wish I was there. If I would have been there. Oh man.
Well, we said our things. I would say, there's some things I could critique. I think we had a local Michigan issue we want to talk to him about, and it was you got to start off on the defensive. It was a little odd. But for the most part, I'm glad that it's good to have somebody there from the Democratic Party who's actually going to listen to these concerns, and it was very validating. He answered my question pretty appropriately when I was talking about voter suppression and what happened in the election last year. I'd say the big problem though is he said in regards to the rigged primary. Oh, I'm writing this article about it. It's going to be in, I think he said New York Times. I can't exactly remember which one. But, what can he, I'm realistic. I understand, the best he could really do is he's got the ear a lot of the establishment Dems, and he can at least say, hey, this reluctance to own up to the rigging of the primary is hurting grassroots organizers. And I'm sure, Tom Perez and Nancy Pelosi and all them are going to hear that and just be like, we don't care, or you're wrong. But at least, he can transmute that message for us or whatnot.
We had a former DNC chair say that it was rigged, and then they tried to backtrack it.
Oh, I said that at the meeting. It's y'all got to quit walking it back. It hurts us when we're organized on the ground, because when I'm knocking on doors for the congressional campaign that I'm working on, one of the first big responses we get is like, I don't trust the Democrats. They screwed over Bernie and his movement. And sometimes that D,
and it's true,
man. Sometimes that D next to her name is like an albatross. I tell you.
Oh man, it's not like it's not true. Here's the thing. This is the thing that I like and dislike Keith Ellison for the same reason. He is a strong progressive to an extent. It's always to an extent. I'm like, Keith, bruh, they smeared you the same way that they smeared Bernie. The Democratic establishment absolutely, not figuratively, disregarded their own rules during your election to the DNC chair.
Yeah, I mean, they did. I don't know if he had to cut out like a little early, otherwise I'm sure somebody would have brought that up.
Oh man, I would have asked him about the purging of the Democrats. Oh man, I would have asked him about if Tom Perez won't even say Medicare for all, and Tom Perez is still if one of the main issues for running for the DNC chair was that it needs to be a full-time job and you need to be focusing on fundraising, why is the Democratic Party losing fundraising to Republicans when it comes to small donors? And why does Tom Perez, who's the head of the DNC, have a job as a college professor?
I think Democrats versus Republicans, people prefer being stabbed in the front rather than the back.
Right.
All right. Well.
All right.
Okay.
Gotta go.
All right. We'll be right back. I'm going to be bringing a guest onto the show. This is Hoodrat Strategist radio program. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are back, and I am joined now by Katy Steele Barone. She is a member of Grand Rapids United Progressives. Bumped into each other at the Keith Ellison meeting that we were just talking about. And I believe you also said you were running for Kent County Commission. Is that correct?
Yep, that's right. District 12.
All right. So let's start off by saying, or talking a little bit about, one of the things that you brought up, and I'm involved. I was more involved in kind of the Dim Enter stuff. I didn't make it onto the State Central Committee out here in my district, but I know you brought up an issue with the MDP, in particularly some like chairmanship appointments. at that meeting with Keith Ellison. And I was wondering if you could kind of describe to listeners what that's all about. You know, people who listen to my show, they know a lot of what's going on nationally, but a lot of them don't really know about some of the shenanigans going on at the state level.
Okay. Yeah. So I'm pretty sure, if I remember correctly, I saw you at the state convention in February. Is that right? Were you there?
Yeah, I was.
Okay.
I had a nice tie on, and I looked like a crazy long-haired radical. You know.
Oh yeah, we all blend right in. Totally.
Yep.
The state convention was crazy in Michigan. You were there, so you know. But for the listeners, it was pretty much drama in every congressional district caucus.
Oh yeah.
Everywhere you went, it was drama, and people were circumventing the rules, and these were decisions that once it gets made at the state convention, it lasts for 2 years. And this is where you go and you vote for all of the positions within the party. So if you want to transform the party, a huge portion of that happens at the state convention. Now, because ours was so early in Michigan, we didn't have a lot of the time that the other states did. But we did try to organize, and we actually organized buses that came from Grand Rapids, and we got a couple of coach buses, we ended up doing one. A couple other people organized different ones. But we got a bunch of people out there, and we worked really hard. And I ran for State Central. I didn't make it on State Central at the convention this year either, but I did attend a couple of the meetings after the convention, because anybody's allowed to go. You just can't talk or vote if you're not a State Central member. And those are actually the people. That's the committee that makes makes up the commission, where they make the bylaws and the rules and all the different changes. You have to become a State Central member, and then you have to get on a committee to do that. So, it does take time. You have to get to know people, then wait for these meetings or conventions to come up, and then actually get voted in. So it's a couple-year process to them enter and get into the party. So in Michigan, the biggest problem we had is that we spent, the last couple of years working with Bernie and doing what we could to get in the party, and we have a ton of precinct delegates and people who have started, attending regular meetings. And so they all went in, and we got a few of them elected as State Central Committee members. Well, like I just said, that's huge because it takes a couple of years to get there. But the problem is about 2 months later, at one of the first or second meetings that they had, our state party chair, who happened to be the same chair that we had during the last election cycle, and who was a superdelegate, and our whole state voted for Bernie, and he voted for Hillary. So
oh yeah.
There's still a lot of resentment there. But then he came along maybe 2 meetings after this convention where we finally got a few people elected, and he appointed 80 members. And if you think about it, that was pretty much what we got elected all the way across the state. Mm-hmm. It just completely washed out all of that effort that we had put in. And that was something that, one of the things that we're all really discouraged about. What's the point? Why fight to get into the party if you're going to get all the way there and then they just change the rules on you?
Yeah, and just to clarify too, because I know some of the defenses they've made for that move is, we wanted diversity, diverse demographics. And just from kind of your
I'm the college Dem president, so don't I deserve a spot? I've literally heard these excuses, and we're not bad people. You didn't appoint bad people. Okay, but that's totally beside the point. It's not about who you are, it's about the process being democratic. Mm-hmm. I've never in the past year, the fact that and that's what it comes down to for me. I will fight for a voice in policy, and I will wait my turn for a voice in policy changes. But I am not going to beg and spend years begging for a democratic process. That should be a part of the Democratic Party. We shouldn't have to work for that. That should be a given. And so I think that's where we're having a really hard time right now.
Well, it's certainly not a new story. A few months ago when the California chair was being picked. It was Kimberly Ellis, I believe her name was. There were some discrepancies in that election, and I know she wanted a recount, and they basically threatened to end her career. It seems to me that in a lot of these parties, they're not used to kind of these young, really, not all young. I should rephrase that, but these energized people who are kind of new to it and are not willing to cede towards kind of the, and I don't even know if I would call it corruption, but this set way of doing things that is, top down and very establishmentarian. So to a lot of people there, they probably, or a lot of the old guard, I would say, they'd probably find nothing particularly unsavory or unusual about a state chair just, appointing a bunch of folks.
So they always say it. They actually use the expression all the time. That's the way we've always done things. And what you need to do is get to know the party and get to understand that there's a reason why we do things this way. But for me, that's not a good explanation. Like, I don't care what your reasoning is. You need a fair, democratic, transparent process. People shouldn't have to spend months or years being involved in the party to see why you do things this messed up way.
Yeah, no, I totally agree.
But yeah, the meeting with Keith was interesting because he came with the chair of our party, that, because they came in together, and it was pretty clear that they had been traveling together the entire time. And from what I've heard from other groups, he was totally different with our group than most of the other people he visited, which I thought was bizarre.
Yeah, I did. I mentioned a few minutes ago how he got defensive, and kind of what I wanted to tie in with that, and it seemed like in reaction to nothing, because for those of us who were there, so you brought up this question about how the voting is supposed to go, the desire for democratic, transparent process, which is not unusual. Like I was like, well, Keith Ellison is here. We should tell him what's going on in Michigan Democratic Party politics. So it seemed like almost more appropriate than some of the other more general questions about superdelegates and
because that's there were people that were kind of looking for a reckoning, as you said at one point. Which I don't know that we'll get that, ever. How do you make up for what happened?
Oh yeah, and I mean, even within the context of my own question, it wasn't necessarily asking for a reckoning. It was just like, could you just tell them, just plant a bug in their ear that they need to stop saying the stupid crap because it's hurting the grassroots. But we talked. So it was a very defensive reaction, and it almost seems to me more. He actually threatened to leave at one point, and once again I emphasize.
I thought that was so crazy because I was going so far out of my way because I felt, well, first of all, you heard him when he first introduced himself, right? Did you hear him when he said, he actually started out saying, I didn't come here to be rude, uncivil, or disrespectful in any way, and I won't tolerate it from anyone else. That was how he started his introduction to us. And we had all been so polite and so welcoming, and I mean, we brought food. And then that was what he sat down and said. And 2 questions in, I was really careful because it had already been, to me, odd that he had approached it that way.
It's good to know. I came in a few minutes late, so that's good.
You did
context.
miss that. Okay. Yeah. And then after that, he started talking about, he said, I will not be recording this meeting. If any of you are recording this meeting, well, that's not something I would do to you. But if you are, that's okay, because I'm not going to say anything I wouldn't want in the Times anyway. And I was like, what? Why is he saying that? Why is he trying to make us feel like we shouldn't record? And so then when I finally got a chance to ask the question, The chair of the party happened to choose the seat right behind me.
Yeah, I noticed
So
that.
it was totally awkward, but I had to ask the question because I wanted to know. I wanted to know the answer, and I wanted him to hear the question, the chair, as well from me. Because I wanted him to maybe put himself in our shoes. I thought maybe he hasn't yet, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So I tried really carefully to phrase it in a way that wasn't combative, that wasn't, you know, accusatory, anything like that. And I just laid it out and said, listen, these people have been working really hard. They've put time in. They went and they got these people elected, and this is how you change the party. And he agreed with me. Yeah, that's how you change the party. I said, but then the chair appointed all these people, and it washed out all of our effort. And what do we do when we're not, you know, you told us to fight to get into the party, and it'll take time. But when they changed the rules, I said, what should we do then? And he just stopped, and he instantly got so cold. And he looked me dead in the eye, and he held my gaze, and he said, I am not going to tolerate anybody being rude or uncivil, and I will leave right now.
Oh, well, the rest of the room was like just befuddled. I don't know if you got a chance to look around. It's like, what is he talking about?
I was in shock.
Yeah.
Like, it literally made my stomach like drop, and I just felt so humiliated. Like, I couldn't even. I kind of stopped, and I was like, I wanted to be mad, and then a couple of my friends, you know, kind of said, "Now hold on, you know, she didn't say anything uncivil. Like, you know, why don't you answer the question?" And when a woman of color finally spoke up and said that, it kind of balanced the power. And I think once that power balance came in, he kind of backed off. Right? He realized, first of all, nobody begged him to stay. Mm-hmm. He was like, I'll leave right now. And everybody was like, and I actually said to him, if you came here to treat us like this, there's the door.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. You know, it's interesting, and you know, I don't want to like completely crap on the guy, but I feel like and you see this with a lot of progressives who are part of like the Washington structure, is, you know, the establishment stuff kind of rubs off on them. And you know, I think that part of it too is, you know, I think he's. It seemed like he was kind of warned about that particular group somehow, and
like be careful. They have really good questions.
Yeah. But it's this idea that you know, interpreting critical questions as somehow rudeness or unfair or trying to bring about disunity. You know. Something I like to tell people is like, there's really no like, you know, the Democratic Party is already unified. Look at how Democrats stand on just about every issue, and the majority want this, progressive policy platform. It just, if there's any divide, it's how we reckon with our elected officials who do not stand by that same agenda, and.
So here's the disparity that I see, right? And from my perspective, it really boils my blood, because I show up to this meeting and it's all the way across town from me, and you know, I don't make a lot of money and I work 5 hours, and I show up and I park my coffee car right outside the front door because I have no shame in my coffee car.
Oh yeah, mm-hmm.
And I watch them pull up in the summer, you know. And then they come in, and then he treats me like absolute crap. I mean, I know he was warned, because I waited in line to shake his hand, and he avoided my gaze and walked away after the person in front of me, and it would not even introduce himself. And you know, it was not that big of a room.
Oh,
so
yeah.
It's not like he didn't see me.
I mean, he talked to me. He complimented my necklace. So
he talked to everybody there. He ignored me blatantly, and it was like a slap in the face. But so then he treats me like crap. And one of the kids that came with him, when I said something about it afterwards, he said, listen, you got to give him a break. You know, he was on all these trips. He went all over the state, and this was his last and hardest meeting this week. He was like, and you need to give him a break. He just snapped because he doesn't have time for this, and you should just give him a break. And I was like, you know what? No, he doesn't get a break. I worked 50 hours this week. I have a family. I came across town, and I was nice to him, and I politely asked him a question, and he attacked me.
Yeah, and I think it's important.
And if we're going to make excuses, it's not going to be for people that are just rude. So. Yeah,
and it's important to note too that like even in the context of your question, it wasn't accusatory towards Keith Ellison. It was more about like, you know, it was like the answer I was expecting was like, you know, something real short. It's like, I'll talk to Brandon about it. Or I'll talk to you and Brandon about it. Like, you know,
exactly. Yeah. Thank you. That's all I was even with. Or even something more general.
Yeah.
Like, you know, there's things that we're going to have to change in every state, because I kept it really general so that he didn't have to make it, you know, an answer that would make anybody look bad or feel bad. And that was why I left him so many openings. So when he chose to come at me like that, I just, I can't understand it, you know? But I also don't have a ton of, like, I did a little bit of research on him before the meeting, and did you know he endorsed basically the millionaire candidate that was running against our revolution candidate in Florida?
Oh, is that a fact?
Could tell. It's not just anyone. It was the one that just resigned for the sexual harassment stuff.
Yeah.
The chair of the Democrats. Yeah, that's who he endorsed when our revolution endorsed the other guy.
Yeah, you know, I mean, that's a discussion into itself. I mean, we've talked on the show about how, like, you know, Ellison's got a lot of, you know, he's certainly not the perfect progressive. You know, even when he was running, I was like, you know, there's a lot of things that do not align with our platform. I think he's the best that we can get. And then, of course, you know, the Obama administration threw that Perez monkey wrench into the whole thing. But, you know, I'd say it is disappointing, even to see like just how the high-ranking progressives in the party have a lot to learn when it comes to really like listening to the constituents and talking about these problems. Because, you know, we're doing exactly what New Deal Grandpa told us to do: go change the Democratic Party. And, you know,
we're trying.
Yeah. But yeah, you know, that's the kind of guidance we need from somebody like Ellison. It's not just I would hope that he's not just you know, a sounding or a listening board for us. You know, like I said earlier when I was talking to Lawrence, you know, he certainly his amount of power, it's really about like he has access to certain ears and such. But if that's the capacity he has, that's really what he should be for the progressive base.
Yeah, what is he going to do with it? You know, it's like you have this position and this access, but are you going to use it to help you, or are you going to use it to help us? Because it seems like we have to remember that great progressives can be, you know, amazing, but then also get into a position where they're corrupted, you know, really quickly. Like, people are so corruptible. So it just seems like for every 20 we get through, 10 of them might stay good.
Oh, yeah. We call it the Walter White effect. You know, you start out, you know, with good intentions, and then before you know it, you're invading sovereign nations and giving speeches to Goldman Sachs. But
I like that analogy.
Yeah. I think I was going to wrap up the show a little bit early tonight. I actually have some journalistic/organizing responsibilities, but I did want to cap it off. So I guess just, you know, after that meeting, you know, what's your feeling on this movement as it pertains to inside the Democratic Party? Like, I'll tell you personally, myself, I've been kind of drifting away from it. I'm still working on my Democratic candidates campaign, but personally, I'm floating more to like kind of a more of a radical alternative, possibly the Socialist Party.
Yes, so, I'm with you. Like, yeah. I'm really questioning things. I'm over this. I'm not gonna stick around and beg for democratic process. I'll go find one somewhere else. But and that's it. Like, we can still be candidates. We can support candidates. We can, you know, if you need the D to win in your district, okay. But I don't want their money. I don't know where their money even came from, and I don't trust it.
Oh yeah.
So,
Yep, and you see, like, a lot of the Democratic candidates who have been winning have been the ones who have been most disconnected from the actual Democratic Party. So
Exactly. So that's what I'll do. I'll use their platform and trash them from it if necessary. Let's see how I clean up.
All right, Katie. Well, I want to thank you for taking the time to join us on the show. And, thanks you for kind of informing us about what's going on inside the party politics. And, you have yourself a great evening. Thanks for dropping all of those mad truths.
Well, thanks for having me. Always look forward to listening to you drop the mad truths. So,
all right.
Take care.
All right. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, as I said, we're going to be wrapping up the show a little bit early tonight. I did one more plug for Why Study the Russian Revolution that's being put on by International Youth and Students for Social Equality. That's going to be at the Bernard Center at 7 o'clock. Room 209. That's actually where I'm about to go head. And we had Joe Lawrence, who's the organizer of that group, on last week, and he did a really great interview about it. If you got time, check out our YouTube channel. We upload all of the shows after they go live. So, see you down there. And hey, if you're mad about net neutrality, 12 p.m. down at the Verizon store on West Main, and 5 p.m. over at the Verizon store on Westnedge. There will be people there. There's going to be some clever signs, and we're going to be speaking truth to some power. Anyway, y'all keep it on, keep on keeping on, keep fighting for that revolution solution, and keep your dial locked. Love all y'all. This has been the Hoodrat Strategist radio program. Good night.